Welcome back to my channel. My name is Matt. It's been a while. I've had a lot of things happen in my life, but I thought it was time that I would get started again. First thing I want to go over I wanted to showcase some dice that I just got. These are my new Oracle dice that I ordered from Monomakes Craft. As you can see, they match the dice that I already had, but as you can see now we've got a new set of Oracle dice. I really like them. You might also notice that I have a new dice tray. This is because I went to ShireCon in September, and somehow between there and literally only playing one game at the convention, I somehow misplaced my foldable dice tray that I've had. Good Lord. I got it from a company called All Rolled Up, which I believe is out of the UK, probably back in 2011, 2012, something like that. Anyway, so I had to order this. It's a little larger than I like, but I think the dice show up good on there, and that's really the primary purpose of having it for you guys. Another thing that I have done is off screen I have rolled up Sam, who, if you watched the previous adventures, was the brave halfling that really kind of stood out during our troll encounter. So I've gone ahead and done up Sam the brave halfling, and he has a +1 to dexterity. I did it the same method that I utilized before. I rolled 1d6 to determine which ability he had a +1 in, and he's a fighter, halfling. He's got a short sword. He also carries a sling, which lines up with what I believe he had during our troll encounter. And then everything else is just normal stuff that I've rolled up. I took all of the group up with their experience. So now you can see that Joseph is now 2nd level bard. One of the other things that I decided is this show is called Doom Comes to Willowford. So we should probably be in Willowford instead of the halfling village. So off screen, I decided that our little party would move from the halfling village, which was down here, back up to Willowford on our map here, and that we would also determine some things that are happening outside that are kind of affecting the world around us. So for the first thing we're going to do is we are going to grab some of our new Oracle dice. I want to determine if there are any events that are happening that would attract the attention of our group. So to do this, I'm going to just use a simple oracle. Basically, we're going to say anything significant happened in Willowford while our group was away. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of DM nudging, I guess you could call it. So just a quick overview of my oracle for those of you that have not watched the other video, which is actually one of my more popular videos. I use a 2 or 3 die oracle system. Blue is equal to a yes or a positive answer. Red is a negative or no answer. And if it's a simple oracle, I roll this. In this case, blue beats red. It's a simple yes, whatever the question is. I try to steer the questions strictly to yes or no so that we can utilize the oracle as easy as we could. Another example, in this case, the answer would be no. In this case, if I wanted to have a little bit of degree of certainty in the answer, 6 is a pretty significant roll over a 3. Thus, this would be a little bit more of a stronger negative. If I rolled something more along the lines of this, that's barely a no. And I use that kind of as a scale for judgment to help me determine the level or power or significance of the answer of the oracle. One of the other things I do as well is I use what I call my slider die. And the way I use the slider die is if I'm determining an answer to an oracle question, and I feel that one answer, a yes or a no, is more likely, what I do is I take the slider die and I move it in that direction. So if I move it to this way, If either of these dice beat this die, the answer is yes. If I felt like no is a much more likely answer, I would slide it this way. Thus, if either of these die beat the yes die, the answer would be no. And I also use that as a sort of degree of certainty as well. So, for example, say I rolled a 2 here and I rolled a 4 and a 6. Both of these dice are significantly higher than that 2, and therefore my answer, if I wanted a degree of certainty of this answer, then I would say that the no is a much higher, stronger answer than a 2. So in other words, this is a much more significant no answer than the yes. So that's kind of the way I do it. Okay, so let's get started. So for my first thing I want to determine is there anything that happened in Willowford while our group was gone? And for this, I'm going to say yes, because I'm going to use a little bit of DM nudging, as I mentioned a moment ago. I think something should have happened. I mean, otherwise, why are we here? So let's say, did anything of significance happen in Willowford while our party was out adventuring? I'm going to move this here so you can see the die rolls a little better. Wow. Unfortunately, not really. A little bit ambiguous. If the numbers equal, the dice roll results are equal, that's typically an ambiguous answer for me. So I'm going to say no, nothing really significant happened in Willowford. So for my next one, I'm going to say, and I'm going to nudge the dice this way a little bit as well. Some of you might notice I typically slide it. I do this as a visual reference for myself, but also for you guys. If I move the die here, then this die, the slider die, is going to be on the no side. But for this one, I'm going to say it's I'm wanting something significant to happen. Did anything significant happen in the wilderness? And the reason I'm asking this question is, if you remember when I first showcased this map, Willowford is here. There is an ancient tower that is north of town. Now, this is general knowledge that most of the players would know, people in town would know as well if they were asked. There is an ancient ruin of a tower that is north of town that used to be the residence of an evil wizard that back in ancient history defeated a dragon that was tormenting this area. I believe it was the dwarves built him the tower back up here. He wanted, wizards like to be away from town because they're antisocial a-holes. So that's why I'm asking this. And the reason I'm also going to say not only the wilderness, but is anything happening in the woods north of town? Because me as a DM, I am thinking there is something significant happening in this area that will eventually probably lead my heroes to go explore the wizard's tower. I don't know that for sure, but I think that that is a logical progression of our adventure. So again, my question is going to be, did anything happen in the wilderness north of town of significance? And that is a fairly good 6/3. The other two die were matching. So if I was looking for a variance or a certainty in this answer, which I am, I would say yes. And since I rolled a 6, I'm going to say something very significant happened north of town. And because it's such a high roll, I am just going to make the decision that not only was it of significance, it was also something that was noticeable or visible from town, which I'm just going to ask some quick questions here to kind of help flesh that out a little bit. So I'm going to write that down. Next question I want to say is, was it close to town? I'm just going to do a straight oracle question. And that is yes, it was close to town, but not very significant. Was it visible from town? That is also slightly yes. And this is really just a way to kind of flesh out an event. If you were using another game system, you might actually have a table that you could roll that would say, this is what happened. But I'm going to use my oracle because I find it a little more interesting and a little bit more completely random. And I like to be surprised when I am solo gaming. I don't want to really have a pre-planned destination. I want to, like I know that we might be going to the evil wizard's tower in the future, but why? I don't know. And I want to be surprised like that. Was the event ordinary? And by the word ordinary, what I am asking is, was it an everyday occurrence? Something that could happen normally, as in, i.e., not magical or planner. Okay? So was this a normal occurrence? Yes. Okay. So that means it's something mundane, not magical. Next question I'm going to ask is, was this an action between the good people of Willowford and other entities? And that is a very strong yes. So the way I'm going to translate that, if you will, is that somebody or something took action, perhaps an attack, on the people of Willowford, and it was done by some sort of entity that is mundane. We know that. So I'm going to translate that as some sort of action by a group of normal. Okay, so let's write this down. I'm thinking this through as I'm doing this, so that may be why you might be a little bit like, what is this dude doing? All right, so a mundane. Let's see. So now I need to figure out what this was. Let's do this real quick here. Pull out my old white box book. Okay, so for the next thing we're going to do is I want to determine what sort of entity attacked the town or moved against the town. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the forest table here. I'm rolling a d10 and we're going to see what we get. All right, so 5 gives us a humanoid. Turn to the next page. Here are our humanoid rolls. Again, we're going to use open forest. Orcs. Mundane orcs. Okay, so we know it was some sort of orc. And I am going to make the judgment call and say that that is probably an orc force. Now we need to figure out exactly what transpired. So I'm going to use my oracle here because I don't really have any idea what's going on up there. Now, if you are familiar with medieval history, you might have a town, but usually around a town there are quite a bit of estates, manors, farms, that kind of thing. So we know that this was close enough to town that it was visible, and we know that it was mundane. I'm going to assume a band of orcs attacked something having to do with town. I think that would probably be like a farmstead. Looking at the town or the map here, I would assume that maybe there are orchards or clearings that have been made here where people have been attempting to farm. Civilization we can assume is south of here. So this is the frontier land. So as people come here and settle a town, inevitably people are going to branch out and try to make a living. So I'm going to say that there's probably a farmstead or some other structure north of town. All right, so I'm going to just flat out say the orcs attacked something having to do with the town. First thing I'm going to ask is, was it a farmstead? And the answer is hell yes. So being that it is a hell yes, a significant 6/1, quite a strong answer, I am going to conclude that not only was it a farmstead, but it is a farmstead related to somebody of prominence in the town. Maybe it's the mayor's son or something like that. So let's take note of that. This is a farm or residence, well, same thing, of someone related to the town. And just quick, is it a relation of the mayor? No. Okay. Let's look really quick at what other prominent people we have in town. So looking through the description of Willowford, there are a couple important people that live here in town. There is a vineyard. There is a retired adventurer that sound like they were once pretty prominent. They were deadly assassins. There's a shrine. There's the Alston Estate, Lon's Ranch, who's a horse breeder. This actually looks pretty nice. The Stewart Farm, an apothecary. So there are important people in town. Now they may not be, extremely rich or famous or something like that, but I'm going to assume that they are related to one of these people in town. There are 20. Yeah, there's 20 locations in town. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll 2d20, and I'm going to look at the location in the book, and we'll pick one that, suits my fancy at the moment. So I got a 16 and a 3. So 3 is the Long Hollow Farm. Let's see if there's anything interesting about Mr. Longfellow. Garrett Longfellow looks to be a simple farmer. 16 is Finch and Bragg Supply. Interesting, because if you know anything about White Box, it was originally written by those two guys, or edited or whatever. I kind of like that one, so I am going to lean that way and say that the orcs attacked something related to Finch and Bragg Supply. We know that something happened north of town. We know it was relatively close. So one thing I'm going to do really quick here, I'm going to count some hexes. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where did this take place? 1, 2, 3. So this took place in hex 1510. And what could be there? Was this a supply run? Yes or no? No, it was not a supply run. Was it a business relationship from an outside agency that Finch and Bragg have? Oh, look at that. That's completely ambiguous. But I like it because it was very powerful. So I think I'm going to, again, use a little bit of DM, fiat, adjudication, whatever you want to call it. So we know that the dwarves of, I think it was called the Stone Axe. The dwarves of Stone Axe Citadel. So this is what I'm going to say. The dwarves of Stone Axe Citadel do regular business with Bragg and Finch and Bragg Supply. And they do a fairly robust level of travel with them, or business with them. And one of their supply runs coming from Stone Axe Citadel was attacked by a band of orcs in hex 1510, which is the hex right here. And Finch and Bragg are obviously not very happy about it because this affects their business relationship with the dwarves, and they are interested in recovering whatever was in there. And actually, I'm going to do another quick roll here. Was this and I'm going to weigh this a little bit. Was this supply run an average everyday supply run? I'm going to say no because I want something interesting to happen. And that's a pretty significant roll. So this was not an average run. Sorry, I like to have my dice up. I don't know. I'm superstitious or something. Next Oracle question. Was something of significance on this caravan? I am going to weigh this because, again, I as a DM want something interesting to happen. Okay, so here we go. Here's a perfect example. Obviously, this didn't beat, so that doesn't really matter. But here you go, 6-2, almost the widest variance you can roll in the answer to was something of significance on this caravan. So I am going to make a DM decision here. Something of very, very significant importance was on the caravan from Stone Axe Citadel to Smith and Bregg. And let me finish my thought here. And a band of orcs attacked it. Someone that was on the caravan managed to survive and report back to Smith and Bregg. Because of that, we know it was not your average band of orcs. And I don't know why that is. Maybe something that this person saw indicated to them that this was not your average band of orcs that attacked this caravan. And that brings up a follow-up question for me as a DM. I'm curious, are Smith and Bregg just your average merchants? I'm going to weigh this little one, and I'm going to say no, they are not. Oh, look at that. Barely. So that's barely a yes. They are your average merchants, but it's not by much. So now we have a seed for our next adventure. And just to recap, our heroes are returning back to Willowford, and while they were gone, a band of orcs, a band of not your average orcs, attacked a caravan that was traveling from the dwarven Stone Axe Citadel to Finch and Bregg's store. For whatever reason, we don't know. A witness survived, and now Finch and Bregg are very interested in recovering whatever this item is, but also learning more about this orc band that was not your average orcs. And I'm going to stop it right there. We now have a launching point for our next adventure, our next campaign session, if you will. I also want to thank everybody for subscribing. My channel has grown significantly. If you follow the random party generator video cast that Eric Tenkar does about, I think it's on the 2nd and 4th week of every month, Joe has kind of thrown the gauntlet down. That's Joe the lawyer, and basically said he's going to beat my channel to monetization. I don't really care, but we are kicking Joe's ass, so suck it, Joe. And thank you for watching. I hope to get these out on a regular basis again and get moving on our second adventure. So thank you for watching,